Hi there. In today's video I'm going to look at a technique referred to as back button focusing. Now, many of you who are using SLR cameras, digital SLRs, probably have noticed that on the back of your camera there is quite possibly a button labeled AF. As you can see on this camera right here, we have an AF button. Now this AF button is partially programmable on most cameras. On some cameras it will enable the autofocus in its default mode. On others it may cancel autofocus so that you can lock focus on, hold down that button, and it won't change focus. What I'm going to talk about today is using that button as your only way of autofocusing. In other words, your camera is no longer going to use its shutter release button to focus. If I turn this camera on right now, being a screw drive lens, it's going to be a little noisy. So if I go to focus it and I push down my shutter release, nothing happens. But if I push the AF button on the back, as you can see, and here, it's focusing. Now once it locks focus, I can now recompose. I don't have to hold down any buttons. It is now locked at that focal distance only. It will not refocus. If you're doing something like trying to capture action at, say, a corner of a track where there is auto racing or motorcycle racing or horse racing or whatever, you can focus on that corner and then just wait for something to come into your zone of focus. So it has a big advantage. For me, it has meant a lot fewer missed shots. For instance, if I lift my finger off the button when I'm using the shutter release as my focus button, as soon as I lift off, it no longer locks focus. When I touch again, it will refocus. Now what if you're trying to shoot a small object against a background? Quite often your camera will capture the background instead of the object. With this, I lock on it once, it stays on it until I want to change the focus. Now, this camera has an AF button. Entry-level digital SLRs rarely have an AF button. However, almost everything has a button that can be repurposed to that particular function. On this rather old, as you can see by the tape, this rather old entry-level model, at the back here there is an OK button. All of the paint has been worn off, so you may not even be able to see it, but it's in the center of the four-way controller. That button in the center there has been reprogrammed on this camera to perform autofocus. So when I push that button, it autofocuses. I can then recompose, take the picture. Now, I said there were pros and cons. On the pro side, I think I've missed a lot fewer shots because my camera is no longer hunting for focus at the most inopportune moment, because I'm deciding when it should focus rather than it making up its own mind when I touch the shutter release. In terms of cons, I guess the biggest con is that if you pick up the camera quickly and you go to focus on something, you have to remember to push that back button to focus. And occasionally, when the action is fast and furious, that gets forgotten. So I have lost shots for that reason. But I think I've saved more shots by using back button focusing than I have lost. Anyhow, if you look up back button focusing here on YouTube or pretty much anywhere on the internet, you will get far more details, and details that relate to your specific camera model. I know that most camera companies on their enthusiast models and up will have that AF button. However, there are many who will not, but will have the OK button or some other function button that can be programmed to that particular use. All right. So to recap, I think I've lost far fewer shots since I've used this method. It is great for pre-focusing. You can focus on a scene. You don't have to hold down any buttons to stay focused, especially if your camera's on a tripod. And on the negative side, sometimes if you forget yourself and if you don't touch that button, remember, shutter release is not going to focus for you. So anyhow, a short video today, just a little bit of information that might help some people out. Thank you.